Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our first miniature NFL mock draft. On Thursday night, the NFL draft will begin, and by the end of it all, 255 lives will be changed. Today, we are just taking a look at 10 of those, as we are predicting how we believe the first 10 picks will unfold in round 1 on Thursday night. So let's jump right into it with the number 1 pick, the Cincinnati Bengals. And they will select Joe Burrow. Plain and simple. We don't have to go into too much analysis on this. It's almost a foregone conclusion that Cincinnati will be selecting Joe Burrow with the number 1 overall pick in this 2020 NFL draft. He's the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. He's a national champion at LSU, and he's coming off arguably the greatest single season by any player in college football history. He completed 76.3% of his passes, threw for over 5,600 yards and 65 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. He's the best quarterback in this draft right now. He might not be the best long-term, but right now he is the best quarterback in this draft. It's no surprise that the Bengals will select him after going 2-14 in Zach Taylor's first year. But the major question is, yeah, they'll select Joe Burrow, but what's going to happen to Andy Dalton? What will happen to Andy Dalton, who has been the leader of Cincinnati for so long but could just never get over the hump in the playoffs? He'll more than likely get traded somewhere, maybe for some draft picks, maybe for someone that's already been selected later on, but that's going to be the bigger storyline than Joe Burrow getting selected number 1. And keep in mind, just because Cincinnati has the number 1 pick here does not mean they're a horrible team. They went 2-14 last year, but they had 8 games decided by 8 points or less. They very well could have been a 10-win team in Zach Taylor's first year. The talent is there in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's just hoping to get there and finally get them over the hump. Right below the Bengals, coming in at number 2, we have the Washington Redskins. And look, Joe Burrow and Chase Young are almost locks to be selected number 1 and number 2. As one analyst out there said, the first 20 minutes of the NFL draft are going to be extremely boring because we have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. Burrow at 1, Chase Young at 2, and can you blame the Redskins for drafting this guy? I believe that Chase Young is probably the best athlete, all-around athlete in this NFL draft. He had 16.5 sacks and 6 forced fumbles in 2019 at Ohio State. The Redskins do not need a quarterback. They've got Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, and potentially Alex Smith in their quarterback room right now. Ron Rivera comes in year 1 at Washington. He's taking over a defense that was 27th in defensive efficiency in 2019. They need some help up front, and the best guy to do that is Chase Young, who is arguably the best defensive end in all of college football last year. So number 1 and number 2, almost guaranteed locks. Both phenomenal players, both phenomenal athletes that will make an immediate impact with both Cincinnati and Washington. So the third pick in the NFL draft, that's where it's going to get fun. After the first 20 minutes, and of course we all know how this is going to go. Everybody knows how that the Bengals are going to take Joe Burrow and that the Redskins are going to take Chase Young, but they're going to let that clock that starts with 10 get all the way down to about 1.5 to 2 minutes before they finally say the pick is in. That's just how it always works. But they're going to get selected, and then pick number 3 is going to come around, and it's going to heat up. It's going to get fun. And right here, it should be the Detroit Lions coming in with the 3rd pick in the draft. We've made a trade. We are believing that the Miami Dolphins, who are slotted to pick 5th, will trade up with the Lions to get that number 3 pick, to get their franchise quarterback, to grab the quarterback that they could see being the future of Miami Dolphins football, who really haven't had a great quarterback since Dan Marino. Let's be honest. So you've got the Dolphins here. The $1 million question is, if they trade up, who do they select? Will they take Tua Tagovailoa, or will they take Justin Herbert? Or will they take neither? Maybe surprise and go Jordan Love. But more than likely it's going to be Herbert or Tagovailoa, and we're taking Tua out of Alabama. He's the most efficient quarterback in college football history. 199.4 career quarterback efficiency. He has the best career touchdown to interception ratio in college football history. That's a 7.91. 87 touchdowns to just 11 interceptions. The only reason Tua has a question mark around his name from every general manager in the National Football League right now is because of his injury history. He's a high-risk, high-reward player. But the high reward to me greatly outweighs the high risk. Because when Tua is healthy, he was one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, and he can absolutely be a franchise quarterback. We knew coming into 2019, the slogans, "Tank for Tua," were circulating all throughout the NFL. Miami was at the forefront of those chants. I believe they'd get their man and Tua. They bypassed the injury risk. You go back and look at what they did with Drew Brees many years ago. They thought Drew Brees was too hurt and too risky to take. They passed up on him, and they've been kicking themselves ever since. They cannot afford to make another mistake like that, and so they get their man. Tua Tagovailoa heads to Miami. They trade up to number 3. If they don't trade up to the 3rd spot, it's a good chance that the Chargers, down at number 6, could very well do that and steal Tua from Miami. So that's why this trade is necessary. But we like Tua Tagovailoa going 3rd overall to the Dolphins instead of Justin Herbert. Right below them, we have the Giants, who many think could trade down in this NFL draft. They've got the 4th pick right now, but there's a chance they could trade out. But for this mock draft, we're going to keep him in at number 4. And many say that Isaiah Simmons will be selected here, the freak of nature out of Clemson. We're going to say no. We think Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, will be heading to New York. So back-to-back Alabama players that will be selected in this NFL draft. And the reason we're saying that is from this quote right here from David Gettleman, the general manager for the New York Giants. He said, quote, "You know my theory. Saquon can't run without holes. Daniel Jones can't throw on his back. We're going to continue to build the offensive line." End quote. Maybe that's a smokescreen. Maybe that's a smokescreen and New York's going to surprise a lot of people with the 4th pick, or maybe they do trade down. But he makes a very valid point. New York needs help up front. And Wills is one of the best offensive tackles, if not the best tackle in this NFL draft, allowing just 1 sack in the past 2 years at Alabama. So Isaiah Simmons could very well be selected here. Jeff Okudah could very well be selected here if the Lions do in fact trade down. But I think Wills or even Tristan Wirfs, who we'll talk about here in a second, are the better options for New York at this 4th spot. We're going to go with Wills in this scenario. So right below the Giants, we have the Lions, who traded down. They were originally slotted for 3rd. They've traded down to 5th because they gave their pick up to the Miami Dolphins, who selected Tua Tagovailoa. They get Jeff Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State, who was arguably the best cornerback in all of college football last year and is the best cornerback in this NFL draft. He's absolutely shut down. He shuts down any receiver that he goes up against, and he is the perfect fit for Matt Patricia's defense. A Matt Patricia defense in Detroit that has just added in this offseason alone Jamie Collins, Duron Harmon, Desmond Trufant, Danny Shelton, and Reggie Ragland. He is building an elite defense in Detroit, and rightfully so, him being a fantastic defensive mind, as we saw for many years during his time in New England. Okudah would be the perfect fit for his defense and would be the perfect fit for Detroit, especially after they parted ways with Darius Slay, who is now at Philadelphia playing for the Eagles. This is a perfect fit for them. If the Lions do not trade down, they stay at number 3, I think they draft Okudah there. I don't think the Giants steal him at 4. I think he drops to 5, but an absolute huge pickup for Matt Patricia and his Detroit Lions squad. Best cornerback in the league. The offense is looking fine in Detroit. They got to keep building that defense, and he's the guy that's going to help them do it. Coming in at number 6, we have the LA Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, no longer San Diego. And we have them selecting Justin Herbert, the quarterback out of Oregon, who was our 2nd-rated quarterback coming into the NFL draft. But he will be the 3rd quarterback coming off the board in this NFL draft. And you look at the Chargers here, and there's a chance, many are saying, that LA passes on a quarterback. that they decide not to take one. Maybe they go on the offensive line. Maybe they try to bolster up that defense because they still have Tyrod Taylor and Easton Stick from North Dakota State on their roster in their quarterback room. And Tyrod Taylor, while he's not a franchise quarterback, is one that has plenty of starting experience back during his time with the Buffalo Bills and could just be enough to get the Chargers through one more year before they finally bite the bullet to get a quarterback. Or maybe they're looking in free agency for a guy like Cam Newton or Jameis Winston. But I like Justin Herbert here. I think he's too good to pass up here. You've got to keep him on the West Coast. People are kind of worried about him not ever being out of Eugene. But Oregon to LA, not that big of a difference geographically. You keep him out there on the West Coast. You're providing him with tons of weapons and guys like Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler out of the backfield, and Hunter Henry, who's one of the best tight ends in the National Football League right now. There's a chance they could steal Jordan Love here. If they don't like Justin Herbert, I could see them taking Jordan Love as the other quarterback here at number 6. But I think Herbert owns that slight edge. I think he would fit better into the LA system. We've got him going 6 overall. Top 10 pick for the prospect out of Oregon. And right here, I know we're kind of cramped up here on the whiteboard. Putting 10 picks on here was not ideal. But we've got the Carolina Panthers selecting Derrick Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. And once again, you'll notice that through 7 picks, we have not said Isaiah Simmons' name, who is a very highly touted prospect entering this draft. And we'll get to him in a little bit. But as we all know, the Carolina Panthers are set at quarterback right now. They got rid of Cam Newton. They've got Teddy Bridgewater. And he's not the leader of the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey is. He is the best offensive player on the Panthers and is one of the best offensive players in the league right now. I like the fact that Matt Rule might take Derrick Brown here. If you go back and watch Baylor's film during his time down in Waco, Matt Rule always had a pretty solid defensive line, especially this past year in 2019 when they nearly made the college football playoff. He loved to have that strong defensive line. He loves to bully you up front. He loves to win in the trenches. And to do that, I can't think of anyone better to bolster that in your first year as an NFL head coach than selecting Derrick Brown out of the SEC, who is one of the best defensive linemen in the entire nation this past year, along one of the best defensive lines at Auburn in the entire nation this past year. He's too good to pass up at number 7. I know they could go Isaiah Simmons here, but I like Derrick Brown just a little bit more in this scenario. But we do have Isaiah Simmons being selected 8th overall by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I know many would love to see Arizona take a wide receiver, such as CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. Imagine one of those guys lining up alongside Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins now, Christian Kirk, and Andy Isabella. But Cliff Kingsbury, as big of an offensive mind that he is, has to know that if Isaiah Simmons is still on the board at number 8, he is way too good to pass up, and you have to select him. He's an absolute freak of nature, a guy that can play linebacker, a guy that's played cornerback, a guy that's played safety. He's an all-around defensive player. He's extremely athletic, and the Cardinals ranked 31st in defensive efficiency in 2019. Second to last, guys. That's second to last in the NFL when it comes to defensive efficiency. They need help, and they need it just about everywhere. The beauty of Simmons is he can play everywhere. So if he's not selected by the Giants, if he's not selected by the Panthers, the Cardinals have to select him. And I think that's exactly what Kingsbury will do, knowing that they need help on the defensive side of the ball, maybe just slightly more than they do up front on the offensive line. Coming in at number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's hard to believe we're just a few years removed from the Jaguars being in the AFC Championship game. Hard to believe we're just a few years removed from the Jaguars having one of the best defenses in the entire NFL. It's all falling apart down in Jacksonville. They've got the 9th pick in the draft here. They also have the 20th pick in the draft here. They need help on the offensive line. They need help defensively. Well, we said Jeff Okudah is the best cornerback in this NFL draft. I believe the second best is C.J. Henderson. And he's too good to pass up, especially in the top 10, if I'm Jacksonville, who is so thin defensively. They're going to ride with Gardner Minshew for now, so Jacksonville doesn't need a quarterback. Can't imagine they're going to take a guy like Jordan Love or really anybody else by that point. They need guys on the offensive line. I think they get their guy at number 20. There's tons of great offensive linemen in this draft. They can afford to wait and grab one with the 20th pick if they don't give that up. They've got to get help defensively. And if they select C.J. Henderson, they're going to have a great edge rusher in Josh Allen. They're going to have a great linebacker in Miles Jack. And then you'll have a great cornerback in C.J. Henderson. So you're going to have a great player at each of the three major areas defensively. This, to me, is a no-brainer if Jacksonville keeps this 9th pick. And then rounding out our final pick in our mini mock draft, we've got the Cleveland Browns, who many think could trade down. Many think might give up this 10th selection here, but let's say they don't. I think they select Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. They definitely need help up front. They've got to give Baker Mayfield time to throw to some of those elite receivers. You've got to be able to open up holes for guys like Nick Chubb. And I look at this here, guys. Maybe it's not Tristan Wirfs. Many think it's Wirfs and Wills that are the two best tackles in the draft right now. Maybe Wirfs goes up as high as number 4. And if he does, then the Browns should take Wills. If they're both gone by that point or they don't like either, it could be Mekhi Becton out of Louisville, and it could be Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. But I like these two prospects a little bit better. And if Cleveland sticks at number 10, they're going to have to select an offensive lineman. There's no doubt about it. And right now, Wirfs would be the best option on the board. And that's who they're going to go with. As the Browns are trying to get to the playoffs, so much talent, so much potential, they've got to be able to utilize it. Wirfs is going to be a great addition to help them reach those goals. So guys, there you have it. Our first mini mock draft. Only 10 picks. 255 players will be selected over a 3-day period. We're just taking a look at the top 10 picks, which of course are the biggest picks of the night on round 1. But I can tell you this. Round 1 is going to be a fantastic night. Thursday night is going to be huge. Outside of these top 10 picks, we'll see how accurate we are. That's the beauty of it. It's all skeptical right now. We're just kind of predicting. Who knows what's going to happen. But it's going to be a great night. It's going to be an interesting night as it's a virtual draft. Players won't be there in person. Goodell will be announcing from his basement. But lives will be changed, and we will see some of the best college football players we've been watching over the previous few years get selected, and then we get to start watching them compete at the next level in the years to come. And NFL Draft is one of the best times of the year, and it's one of the biggest sporting events we've had in months. So make sure to take it all in the entire 3-day process. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know, who do you think should be in this top 10 that's not? Who should be dropped out? Do you think these picks will be accurate? Who do you think is going to go, in the top 10 in the first round? Who's going to trade up? Who's going to trade down? Leave your comments below. We want to discuss with you. And, of course, we'll discuss with you on Thursday night with our post-draft show as well. So do not miss out on that. And once again, as always, thank you for watching. And we will see you next time right here at the Gridiron Expert.